Hey, what's going on, Children's Ministry team? Wanted to just take a minute. I'm sending this video specifically to all of our key leaders and coordinators that are overseeing other volunteers. I want to hit on a few things that are just super important as we're leading our teams, as we're leading our areas, and as we're kind of developing our ministry. There's three main things that I think, as primary coordinators and ministry leaders, that you're responsible to do. The first thing is really simple, and this is what we often think about when we think about our jobs. It's maintaining the standards that we have in our specific role. So it's doing what you do. If you're leading an early childhood ministry, you're providing care, quality care to the kids birth through 5 years old. If you're running a basketball league, you're trying to provide a good customer experience and having a good basketball experience for everybody. If you're running an elementary ministry, you're providing a good quality product to all the elementary kids that come to you. So that's what we do. We are maintaining our standards, and we're accomplishing the task that we're setting out to do for our specific area of ministry. That's usually the easiest thing to grasp and to understand. The second thing that we do is we are developing people. So important for you to think about all of the people that are in your area. Everybody that is getting this video. You have people that are reporting to you. That people that are looking to you for leadership, looking to you for advice, looking to you for instructions. And you want to make sure that you don't just stop at number one. So we all have our ministry that we're trying to accomplish. We're maintaining our standards and we're doing what we're doing. But alongside of that, while we do what we do, we also have to be developing people in addition to that. So if you're only looking at your people to accomplish tasks, we're kind of missing out on the point of what we do. Ephesians 4 talks about how there's the fivefold ministry gifts, and that people called to ministry are equipping others. So each one of you should be functioning as an equipper, and everything that you do with the people on your team should be about making them better, should be about advancing their abilities so they can have a greater impact, and developing them to be better at what they do. So you have to have a strategy for that. It takes some thought on who am I working with, and how do I make them better. This is not about the corporate goal that we have. It's about individuals. So if I talked about number one, maintaining the standard and doing what we do, that's all the corporate stuff. It's the big broad children's ministry, or the program that we run, the league that we run, the ministries that we're running. It's broad, and it's a big picture thing, and it's kind of covering a large area. When we talk about developing people, it's all about an individual. So it's so important to just look at people as individuals and not try to just run them through a system or a machine, or they're just like a number on the team. Everybody has individual preferences. Everybody has individual abilities and individual giftings, and they have a sweet spot. You want to try to get them in that sweet spot, and you want to get them to the point where they're growing and they're developing. Everything about that takes a lot of guidance from the Holy Spirit. It takes prayer, and it takes a lot of wisdom. Um, so what I would encourage everyone to do is just pause for a little bit this week and think about each one of the individuals on your team, and ask yourself the question: how can I equip them to be the best that they can possibly be, and be the person that God's calling them to be? And maybe where are they right now, and where is God calling them to get to? And how do you just close that gap a little bit? How do you move them a little bit closer to where God is calling them? And that is an individual question for every person on your team. It's not something that you can just create this big strategy where everybody goes through the same process. Everyone's very different. So I want you to think about that. Continue to do what you do, maintain your standards, but also pause and think about developing people. Who are the people on your team that you are intentionally developing, and helping to become better at what they do and more effective in their calling that God has on them? The third thing that we do is we make people decisions. So number one was maintain your standards. Number two is develop people. But then the third thing is, and this is any leader, any coordinator, somebody that's functioning over people, is you make lots of decisions, and many of them are people decisions. You're in a leadership role. A lot of your decisions are, how do you use people? What's the best way to kind of launch somebody out? Who's the right person? So here's just a couple things that I want to talk about. Um, some things that involve people decisions. Recruiting. Who do you want on your team? Placement. Not only who do you want on your team, but where do they best fit on your team? And then another thing is training them. How do you get them to the point where they can be fully functional on your team? And those are just some key decisions that you have to make, because you can get the wrong people on your team, you can get the right people on your team and put them in the wrong spot, or you can get the right people on your team and put them in the right spot, but you let them go into that role at the wrong time. So who you choose, where you place them, and when you place them are all very, very important factors to consider. I'll say that again. Who you choose to be on your team is important. Where you place them to be on your team is important. And when you place them in that role is important. So you may have the right person in the right spot, but they just might not be ready at that time. It may take some time to get them to that point. And you have to be wise as a leader as you make those decisions. Here's a couple things that I want to just throw out to you that help me make decisions about who gets placed, where they get placed, and how soon they get placed. There's three main factors that I'm looking for in a person. And every role that you're trying to staff requires some level of each of these three things. The number one thing is their ability. That's the easiest thing to see. Are they capable of doing the job that you're asking them to do? Do they have the skills? Do they have the necessary techniques or skills or whatever? Are they fully capable of doing this job? Do they have the ability? The next thing is their availability. Do they have the time to commit to this job? So you may have a job that requires 5 hours a week, and someone is only able to give you 2 hours a week. They're not a good fit. They may have the ability, but they don't have the availability. So you want to consider those things. You want to think about that. And then the third thing is their passion. Are they passionate about the job that you're asking them to do? And there needs to be some combination of those three things: their ability, their availability, and their passion. And when they have all three of those things, they're typically the right fit. Another thing to think about is some jobs don't require a lot of ability. Some jobs don't require a lot of availability. Some jobs don't require a lot of passion. But you want to be smart and use wisdom as you place people. Here's a couple of examples. Let's think about early childhood, and you have somebody that's just an assistant. Their primary job is serving snack. Their abilities can be pretty limited. They don't have to have any special skills. They don't have to have any special talents. They're pouring goldfish into Dixie cups and passing them out to kids. There's a small level of ability needed for that job. But you do need somebody that's available to be there when the kids are there. And you also want somebody that's going to be somewhat passionate about what you're asking them to do. They should be passionate about young kids. If you have somebody that's miserable that can just pour snacks and show up on time, it's not going to be the right fit. So keep that in mind. I've had people who are highly talented. They have the ability that they need. They have the passion they need, but they don't have the availability, and that disqualifies them from some different roles. I have some young people on the weekend services who they come to Crosstown maybe once a month. They help out. They're really good. They're great on stage. They're great at leading worship. They're great at characters. They're well spoken, but they're not able to be there on a regular basis. I can't put them into a key role because they don't have the availability that's necessary. Then another example is you may have somebody that's super passionate about worship. You may have somebody that is available anytime that you need them. But if they can't sing, you don't put them as a worship leader on stage in the adult worship service where they're supposed to be singing. So just some areas that you really want to think about as you're looking at your team, as you're placing people, as you're recruiting people, as you're getting new people connected. You want to look at those three things. What are their abilities? Do they have the skills necessary to get the job done? Do they have the availability? Are they able to give the time needed to do this job well? And do they have passion for the area? If they lack passion, they're not going to be able to do things well. Even if they can do it well, they have the skills and they're able to be there at the time you need them to. The passion is always a contagious thing, and that transfers to other people. So you want to guard that a little bit. Just a couple of leadership thoughts for you. As you're recruiting, as you're building your team, make sure you're keeping that in mind. and as you're making decisions, people decisions, keep those things in mind. Looking forward to seeing you guys at our next time that we're together. I'm sending this out to a lot of different people in a lot of different areas, but some things that I wanted us to all be aware of. Again, key roles as a leader is number one, you need to maintain your standards and do what you do. You need to be developing people during the process, and you need to make good people decisions. And some of those things, as you're making people decisions, you want to think about ability, availability, and passion. All right, I'll see you guys soon. Have a great week.